expanded and in-depth version of MacDonagh's work. Cunningham, however, finished his study more than a decade before MacDonagh's book appeared. Perhaps most important, Dr. Cunningham's dissertation deserves publication because the passage of 40 years has not, as some might initially believe, dated his efforts. Indeed, listeners will quickly discover it is still a fresh and vivid player in Shiloh historiography. Dr. Cunningham espoused in his 1960s-era dissertation many new ideas about the fighting that were not widely accepted or even seriously considered until very recently. Shiloh and the Western Campaign of 1862 was 40 years, an eternity in Civil War historiography, ahead of its time. It is not, therefore, simply an older treatment of the battle dusted off and repackaged for a wider audience. Shiloh historiography is just now catching up with Cunningham. Historical writing on Shiloh falls into 4 distinct schools of thought. The first school, post-battle to the late 1880s, is comprised of a recounting of the battle by its participants. The second school of thought, which is the dominant school even today, began with the establishment of the park in 1894. With access to published reports, accounts penned by the veterans, and the battlefield itself, this school insisted that the keys to the battle were the Hornet's Nest and Sunken Road. A more recent third school argued it was Albert Sidney Johnston's death, and not the struggle in the Hornet's Nest, that determined the fate of the battle. The fourth and final school, which is just emerging and quite revisionist in nature, takes a new and almost radical approach to understanding the combat at Shiloh. This school argues that neither the Hornet's Nest nor Johnston's death was the key to the battle. Rather, it was a misunderstanding of the enemy's positions, deployment, and a failure to understand the battlefield's geography that resulted in the Confederate defeat. Simply put, Johnston and others fought the battle incorrectly. The first school of Shiloh historiography, the Veteran School, spanned 3 decades and consisted of hundreds of works. Large numbers of soldiers, from privates to general officers, wrote about their experiences in the battle. Newspapers ran weekly serials, as did Century Magazine and several others. Old soldiers like Confederate Sam Watkins put their memories on paper for distribution, while more famous personages like U.S. Grant, William T. Sherman, and P.G.T. Beauregard received large sums of money for their recollections. Veterans organizations, such as Army societies, published many reminiscences, as did state historical societies. The flood of information that emerged during these 30-plus years following the war was simply immense. David W. Reed, a Shiloh veteran of the Union Army of the Tennessee and Shiloh National Military Park's first historian, dominated the next period called the Reed School. Appointed in 1895 by Secretary of War Daniel S. Lamont, Reed became the chief historian of the battle. His efforts at marking the field, writing about the battle, and interpreting the events of April 1862 combined to produce a major school of thought that has dominated Shiloh historiography to this day. Reed's findings became manifest on the battlefield, in newspaper accounts, in journal articles, and in 2 books. The first volume reflecting this was a history of his regiment, the 12th Iowa Infantry. The book emphasized the regiment's activities in the battle, with the Hornet's Nest and Sunken Road playing the major role. With the second book, The Battle of Shiloh and the Organizations Engaged, Reed produced the first volume dealing specifically with the battle itself. Published for the Shiloh Commission by the Government Printing Office in 1902.